Welcome to Alaska Matters with Chris Story. To reach Chris, call 226-3933. 226-3933. Now, giving you something to talk about, here's Chris Story.
Alaska holds a special power. What that power is, I don't know exactly. But once it has you, that's it. You can leave Alaska, but Alaska never leaves you. My grandma Ollie, Olive Kohler, spent one last Christmas with us this year. And as I was walking her to the car to take her home after she was leaving our house on Christmas night, she grabbed my arm and she said, "Chris, you love Alaska, don't you?" And I think it was really important to her that her family was A, still here in Alaska, and B, still loved Alaska and felt that special something that her and Grandpa felt in 1947 when they first got here. I stopped and looked her in the eyes and said, "Grandma, yes, I love Alaska, and it will always be my home." She patted my arm, and we moved on to the car, and never another word said. Grandma wouldn't see the new year, but she'll always be an Alaskan. In fact, it was her passing on New Year's Eve that led me on a journey, this journey that you and I are about to embark on, modern pioneers. I started searching for stories of pioneers of Alaska like Grandma and Grandpa, Olive and Art Kohler. And I found so much has been written. So many stories have been told. So many the early settlers and pioneers of Alaska. So much has been archived already, which is great. And I was really glad to find a lot of that. Those that arrived just before and then after World War II. But what about the pioneers of the 60s, the 1970s? Modern pioneers. People that, you know, now here in Homer even, our little hamlet by the sea, we're so comfortable. We have time to argue over the color of your sign and the size of your sign, and they have appropriate placement of where you put your sign. When back in the 50s, early 50s, when my grandparents opened their grocery store, Catchmack Food Cash, you were so happy to learn that there was fresh cantaloupe in town. You didn't care what they wrote it on. You didn't care if they scrawled out some butcher block paper and magic markered it up and said, "Fresh cantaloupe in town." You raced down there and you got some of it because it was a commodity. It was a rarity. So Alaska still remains a place of neighborly love. I'm convinced of that. I'm not downgrading the fact that we have time to argue over these things. But what was it like for you in the early days, prior to a cell phone, prior to getting upset because you dropped a call somewhere between here and Anchorage, or, you know, even here in the store? What was Alaska like before we had a radio network, a network of different radio stations that as you traveled around the state you could tune in and out of? When pavement was a scarce commodity, what was Alaska like for the modern pioneer? You're about to find out right here on Alaska Matters.
Hi folks, Jackie Ray here for the Caribou Family Restaurant. The Caribou Family Restaurant wants you to remember how happy you were at Thanksgiving, past Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day, Valentine's Day, how happy you were with the service, how happy you were with the highest quantity of food, more than you can eat every day at the Caribou Family Restaurant, how happy you were with the quality of food, how happy you were with the prices for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. In fact, the Caribou Family Restaurant wants you to remember each and every time you hear or see the word happy, how happy you were with sumptuous prime rib on Friday and Saturday nights, breakfast any time of the day or night. So if you want to be happy again, stop by the Caribou Family Restaurant and be happy every day from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Lake Street and Pioneer Drive in downtown Homer. Check it out. Be happy every day at the Caribou Family Restaurant, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. See you here, 235-5148. Orders to go.
On the road to Anchorage the other day, about 5:30 in the morning, I came around the corner, and in the distance, yes, I could see the bright lights of Blackwater Bend Espresso. While my gas tank was full, I was running on empty. Blackwater Bend Espresso, just what I needed. Along with my Black Mancino, which is a quad shot Americano in a 16-ounce glass without any cream, just like God intended it. I also got a ham and cheese croissant. I'm telling you, that was the highlight of my trip. Blackwater Bend Espresso, never leave Homer without it.
Panoramic heights, spectacular ocean and mountain views, including volcanoes and incredible sunsets. Live outside of town, but less than 10 minutes from Homer. Affordable land for your dream home. These lots are priced to sell. Owners will finance, and so will First National Bank Alaska. Call Deborah at Bay Realty at 235-6183 for more information today. 235-6183, and enjoy the privacy and quiet life this wonderful subdivision offers. Or how about 52 acres next door? Celebrate nature. Set amid the rolling hills, peace and privacy can be yours on this 52-acre estate. Live well on this beautiful parcel. Moose, bear, and other wildlife are here to greet you. Come home to a secluded estate, away from the world, but within driving distance to everything. Urban farmers and ranchers will find this a true delight. Call Deborah Lysick at Bay Realty at 235-6183. When you need results, Bay Realty works.
If you take nutrients for your health, why not take the very best? Trevo is just that. No more guessing about what your body needs. The scientists and formulators of Trevo have carefully balanced 174 nutraceuticals from around the globe to create a one-of-a-kind, carefully balanced nutritional product that is so unique, so revolutionary, that there is literally no other product like it on the market anywhere. Trevo gives you and your family the most advanced and complete health system ever invented, all in one convenient formula. Go to trevocorporate.com/coach/WROB. Go to trevocorporate.com/coach/WROB. Or call Mark at 299-8379. In Anchorage, call Jacob at 830-7510. If you take nutrients for your health, why not take the very best? Trevo is just that.
You're listening to Alaska Matters. I'm Christopher Story, broadcasting live from the corner of West Hill and the Sterling Highway, home of Story Productions and Story Real Estate. We're starting today Modern Pioneers, our Where We Live series.
Where we live, we got clear blue skies. Where we live, we got tall oak trees. Where we live, we're the only ones who live there. Where we live, mostly as we feel.
John P. Calhoun in 1978 rolled into Homer, Alaska. Why? We're about to find out. He left the comfort of his life in the United States for the last frontier. I talked about this before. He had a half a dozen kids, a half a dozen dollars, and one dream of Alaska. Well, did that dream become realized? And what awaited John Calhoun and his family in 1978? Join me for the next half hour as we explore John Calhoun's adventure right here on the greatest show on earth. John Calhoun, welcome to Alaska Matters.
Hiya, Chris.
Good to have you here. Blackwater Bend Wine Bender on a recent trip to Anchorage, two Americanos got me through, both one for me and, well, actually they were both for me. I ordered two. I always feel a little silly about ordering two coffees, but I needed them for this trip. Trust me, I needed it at 5:30 in the morning. I had one ham and cheese croissant, and I'm telling you, if you haven't tried the food and the sweet treats at Blackwater Bend, you're not living. You're not living the Alaska experience you deserve. Blackwater Bend, never leave Homer without it. So here's your question. You can call in right now, 226-3933, 226-3933, and answer this question. And I bet John Calhoun knows the answer to it, but that's not fair, so we'll let you answer it. What was the population in Alaska in 1978? What was the population of Alaska in 1978? Was it A, 400,000 people, B, 300,000 people, or C, 200,000 people? So was it 4, 3, or 200,000 people in Alaska in 1978? Call Story Real Estate right now. Tiffany is standing by and taking your calls at 226-3933, 226-3933. All right. Hey, my guest is John Calhoun. He's a modern pioneer. And you might say that John's a political pioneer at that. John, frame the picture for me. It's New Year's Day, 1978. Do you already know that in June of that same year you're going to be here in Alaska? Was the dream already alive?
Yeah, Chris, I made that decision in the fall previous to that.
Why? I mean, what caused that?
My sister lived in Alaska. She came up in 1958 to teach school in Seward. And she'd come back to visit several times, and we were having lunch in fall of 77, and she said, when are you going to come visit me? And I said, well, it's just hard to take that much time off work to drive. Too expensive to fly. I guess I'll just move up there. Yeah. She said, you can't do that. I mean, you don't have a job. I mean, you know, where are you going to work? And I've always found work. And so that was settled right then and there. And then later she mentioned that she had bought a lot that had a cabin on it, and they told her they'd tear the cabin down and she'd buy the lot. But she decided to build someplace else. She had this lot. She was trying to sell it. And I said, fine, I'll buy it. Don't tear the cabin down. And
So let me just preface this or put an underline under this. You're getting ready to live in what somebody else wanted to tear down.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead. Carry on.
Well, actually, it's still standing today, 33 years later.
No kidding.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, there is. So, yeah.
So here you are. You're on your way to Alaska, Homer specifically, obviously, because your sister was already living here. Do you remember your first thoughts as you drove into town? You said it's June. You're here in June. June 10th, I think you said you're right?
June 7th.
June 7th. Do you remember your first thoughts as you came over Baycrest Hill?
It was stunning. I grew up in Kansas, so I'd never even seen the ocean until I wasn't turning an arm. And then when you come across Baycrest Hill and you just see the spit, the bay and everything, it is absolutely stunning.
No second thoughts at that point?
No. I mean, it was, we had a lot of trouble traveling up, a lot of breakdowns. One thing, another is like, I don't know how to describe it, but it was pretty funny.
Funny? I mean, you weren't, even as your car's breaking down, what were you driving, by the way? What did you bring up here?
Gosh, I think it was a 61 Ford pickup, and it kept, wheel bearings kept going out on rear axle bearings. And it took me about a year after I was here to figure out why they did, but anyway, I think I stopped and replaced rear axle bearings about 6 times, and also had to put a new differential in I think it was Edmonton. So, yeah, it was, kind of an adventure that way, but it wasn't discouraging by any means. It's just part of traveling. The Alcan was mostly dirt back then. And that was something. I was so excited to get off the gravel and the dirt roads and to get onto real pavement. Then I found out what frost heaves were. They don't seem to grade out very flat.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, anyway, I got to Homer. One of the first things I realized was, I don't know where my sister lives. Yeah, because we didn't have street addresses back then. If you got mail, it was all a post office box, and I'm a city kid, so I'm used to looking the phone book. That'll give you their phone number and address. Well, they don't, of course, here, and they didn't then, and my sister didn't have a phone. Phones were a commodity. She had lived here 2 years and hadn't been able to get a phone. So anyway, after driving around in circles for about a half an hour, I finally just thought, okay, I'll just start asking people. And I think I asked one person. First person I asked said thought she lived out by the Putter Inn.
But knew her. I mean, in other words, the first person you talked to in this community already knew who you were looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thought they knew. And thought she lived out by the Putter Inn. So I went out that far, 4 miles. No.
For the uninitiated, the Putter Inn, now the Wasabi's.
Wasabi's, right. Okay. And so then I came back in, and I saw a lady taking out her trash on East Road there, and stopped and asked her. And by now, this is like 11 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock. It's still daylight, so that's kind of exciting to me, too. And she says, oh, yeah, she lives right down there. Points to the house about 1/8 of a mile away from where I was. And I went to the wrong house. I said, oh, she's around the corner, and it was a small enough town then. Yeah. Most everybody knew most everybody.
So you met half the people before you even got to your sister's house.
That's true.
You'd already imposed yourself on everybody.
Yeah.
Well, describe what Homer looked like. So you're coming down Baycrest, you're seeing the ocean. I mean, that's really seeing the ocean. Seeing the Cook Inlet's like, seeing the ocean here, the Kachemak Bay and the mouth of the inlet here is pretty breathtaking. But what about Homer? What were your impressions that you still have today of Homer in 1978?
Well, I think that maybe the clearest picture I can give you of Homer back then was I was in a restaurant a few months later, and there was a couple and another person seated in a booth behind me, and they said, well, we've got, they were just having coffee, and they said, well, we've got like an hour before we're going to our dinner reservations, and this couple had just picked this person up from the airport, and they said, well, why don't maybe we could drive around and see downtown. We just did. And that was kind of it. Driving that half hour of driving around aimlessly was trying to find downtown, part of it, which was basically I was driving back and forth through downtown, down to Old Town, where we had Pioneer Avenue, Lake Street. Main Street was a kind of a trail partway up to Fairview, and that was the end of it there. Bartlett went up to the hospital and then took Main Street down to Old Town there, and that was pretty much it. There was no Sterling Highway bypass down there. Pioneer Avenue was the Sterling Highway then.
Was the Spit something you were looking forward to seeing? Had you heard stories about the Spit and you couldn't wait to get out there? Or
I wouldn't go that far.
No?
But I'd heard about the Spit, and it was, obviously a unique land feature for somebody from Kansas.
Right.
But, and I saw it from Baycrest, but as far as getting out to see the Spit, I wasn't.
And you're still not nervous at this point about the fact that you have no job. You've met, half a dozen people inadvertently, and you know your sister's here, but you're not nervous about what you're going to do financially.
No, not really. I mean, I'd saved up enough money to basically live for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
I had enough food, brought a lot of dried food stuff that would last 3 months. Okay, 3 months' time, I'll have something figured out.
And did you?
Mm-hmm.
What'd you do?
Well, let's see. My first job was building a Dutch door for a guy.
Describe a Dutch door. You're talking about Mr.
It's a little kind that like Mr. Ed, that
Okay.
opens at the top and the bottom. And he had come into, my brother-in-law owned the Anchor Point Traders. And he'd come in and asked if he could buy a Dutch door.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, my brother-in-law said, well, most people just have them made. I don't know of any place you can buy one. He said, well, who would I get? And he said, well, my brother-in-law could build you one. So he turned to me and he asked me what it would cost. And I said, well, I got to look at it.
Uh-huh.
And he said, well, what...
You didn't say how much do you have?
No, I didn't. I've learned that since I've been in real estate.
Yeah.
But anyway, he says, no, just give me an estimate. I said, I'd rather not tell you one thing and then have to change it later. How about I come down to your house or your cabin in about a half an hour? So he says, okay. He told me how to get there. It was down in the boondocks in Anchor Point, which is now it's on like a thoroughfare, Grand Ross or something up there. And he walks out of there, and I looked at my brother-in-law, and I said, what is a Dutch door? That was my first job.
So carpentry. And your college degree is in what?
Bachelor's in zoology and graduate work in biochemistry of plant disease. And mostly I worked in biochemical research and industrial chemistry.
That's not far from a Dutch door.
Not at all. No, I can see the connection right away.
My guest is John P. Calhoun, former mayor of Homer, would-be pioneer, modern pioneer. He's on the program today. When did John get bit by the political bug, and where in the world did that take him? That's coming up right here on Alaska Matters.
Now that it's colder and darkness has taken over, it's easy to let it get you down. But you know, one thing that really perks me up, how more and more people are lighting up their houses for the holidays, thanks to Christmas Decor by Dutch Boy Landscaping. Dutch Boy makes turning your home or business into a cheery piece of the winter puzzle, minus the hassle of having to find a good spot to base a ladder on ice, battle the elements, or scale that roof. It makes a lot of sense to rely on expert decorators trained in safety and proper installation methods. Christmas Decor offers customized lighting displays, garlands, wreaths, and bows. They can design the display, install it, maintain it. They even take down and clean up when the season's over. So if you've been dreading hauling out boxes and boxes of holiday decorations and the threat to life and limb it entails, maybe it's your year to leave it to Christmas Decor by Dutch Boy Landscaping. Find out more about brightening up your place with professional holiday decorating. Contact Danny at 235-7140. 235-7140. Christmas Decor by Dutch Boy. Call now.
Oh, no. I'm out of water. No problem. Call More and More, your locally owned water supplier. 24-hour service from your locally owned water company. Tired of working with an outside corporation? Want to support local business and get better service for less? Then put More and More to work for you. 235-8837. More and More is next door. 235-8837.
Chris Story here with the 3 B's of buying your home. Bones. A few $100 spent with your home inspector can be worth a fortune. Budget. Can you afford the payments, including taxes, insurance, and utilities? Purchase within your budget. Benefit. What is the long-term goal with real estate for you? Know your outcome. Real estate is a long-term investment. Buy and hold equals gold. For all things real estate, catch Radio Realty every Wednesday at 12:30 on KPEN 102 FM. Podcast from our website, radiorealty.us.
Snowbound? Call 399-1526 for Gregoire Construction. When you need snow removal, snow plowing, and sanding this winter, call Richard, 399-1526. If the recent heavy snowfall has literally got you down, call 399-1526 today for snow removal. Licensed, bonded, and insured. Gregoire Construction, 399-1526.
What was John Calhoun listening to in that 8-track coming up here in a 1961 Ford pickup? Could have been this. It was the #1 song in 1978. Andy Gibb, Shadow Dancing. I'm having flashes of butterfly collars, bad dancing, tight pants. This is such a groovy song, though. Well, John, that make it into your pickup on the way up to Alaska?
No, actually, I didn't have an 8-track. I was lucky if I had an AM radio that worked.
you weren't part of the prosperity 1% that can afford an 8-track?
We were Occupy Homer movement.
Right. We're the earliest Occupy member here, John P. Calhoun. You're listening to Alaska Matters. My guest, of course, is modern pioneer, political pioneer John Calhoun. Came to Alaska in 1978, recounting that journey. A lot of breakdowns, a lot of would be probably, I would guess, some mental breakdowns if I had had a car that had rear axle bearings going out. I wouldn't have known how to do it, change it. Would have just rolled that car into a ravine. Us from the pioneers. This program, by the way, will be available on our website. You can podcast the entire program at AdventureAlaskaRadio.com. AdventureAlaskaRadio.com. John, when you rolled into Homer, did you say to yourself, one day I'm going to be mayor of this fair city?
No, I absolutely, that never crossed my mind, anything close to it.
Okay, before you got to Homer, when you were, where did you said you came from, Kansas?
Yeah, Kansas City.
Kansas City, that's in Missouri.
Missouri and Kansas both,
Missouri.
Yeah.
Did you think then, at that point, hey, I'm interested in politics maybe one day?
Oh, no, I had no political aspirations. No, I was wealth and anonymity, and I figured if I just got one of those, I was doing good.
Wealth and anonymity. Well, you can get this at least one of those in politics. What was the process like then? How did you become politically active once you got here to Homer?
Gee, it was 1981. I went to work for the city, I think it was.
Okay.
And was water treatment operator, then public works foreman. And a lot of issues came up regarding city council and the mayor's office and the administration as far as public works went that I disagreed with. And I decided the way to change it was to quit my job and run for council.
Quit your job? Okay, wait a minute. Running for city council back then, A, would have cost you a little bit of money, B, didn't pay anything, right? I mean, it wasn't like a full-time job to be a councilman in the 80s, was it?
No.
What was the plan? I mean, where was the logic?
What plan? No, well, the logic was I'd get another job, and that was kind of...
Because you couldn't do both. You couldn't both be an employee, sort of the lightning rod, where you were at Public Works, and be a councilman.
Right, and I'm going to say this, and I think it speaks to almost everybody that has come to Alaska that wasn't transferred up here by IBM or whatever. When they came here, they didn't have a job. They didn't know what they were going to do. They were coming up here trusting in themselves. Well, that I don't think ever goes away. So, at that point in time, quitting my job and running for council, I didn't think anything about it. I just get another job. Why
Very
not?
Alaskan.
Yeah, and when I announced for council, I think I got 2 guys called me up and offered me work.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you take one of those?
Yeah, I did with Larry Herndon. It was Herndon and Herndon back then, later Herndon and Thompson.
Wow. And you stayed with them for a good 20 years.
17, I think it was, yeah.
Well, as you look back, do you see some big differences in the political landscape, either just here in Homer on the southern tip of the peninsula or Alaska-wide?
Well, particularly here, I guess I don't pay that much attention to it Alaska-wide anymore. But, locally, sure, you see a lot of things. I mean, at the time, we were pretty happy just to have gravel roads, and we got even happier when we had to actually pave streets. Now we're talking sidewalks and, different amenities, possibility of natural gas. a lot of big changes in what we wanted then and, what there is now. It's kind of funny, the changes. Think about my sister not having a phone after living here for 2 years. I mean, you just literally had to go down and cry and beg and do everything you could to get phone service because there just weren't enough lines. And they didn't want to overload the party lines that much.
Right.
And the other day I had a kid that wanted to rent an apartment that we manage and found out that it didn't have Wi-Fi. It said, no, not interested.
Yeah, you got phone before your sister. I mean, she had been here, and then you applied. And how did you acquire a telephone before her?
I was probably
running for council.
No, just more aggressive, And until my sister found out I got a phone before her, and then you don't know what aggression is.
Soon after, Sister Joan acquired a number.
Yeah, I mean, it was, it's for winter, we don't care, we'll just lay the wire on the ground, put posts in later.
Do you think we've changed as Alaskans? I spoke earlier of this power that has a hold over a lot of Alaskans. I can't really articulate it very well, but do you think we've changed as a people that to more... Are we as tough as we were? Are we as independent and filled with endurance, in your opinion?
It's all relative. I mean, I think the people, it's like the kid that didn't want to rent the apartment because it didn't have Wi-Fi. Was Wayne Jones, when he came here after the war, living basically off the land and hunting for meat? Was he tougher than me when I came up in '78 and could go into Proctor's and buy a steak? In his own right, yes. But faced with the way things were then, I don't think he felt like he was, had to work any harder at it than what I felt I had to work at it. And I think it's the same today. I think it's still the same kind of people come here that are just a little bit nuts. Frankly, I mean, you're giving up family, you're giving up jobs, you're going thousands of miles away to a place that people think is desolate, dangerous, threatening. I mean, that's the only thing you see on the these reality shows is the dangers of fishing or the dangers of bear attack out East Road.
Well, you bring up a good point. That one thing's not changed from 1978 when you arrived to when I arrived ahead of you in a womb not far from here. I was born in 1972, so I've been here longer than you.
The womb?
But one thing's not changed is the isolation. We're as isolated now, except through technology. The road's a little straighter. The road's a little bit more paved, but still, I traveled it a few years ago, and there's a lot of unpaved sections throughout Canada. And I'll tell you what, I went to Anchorage last week, a week ago yesterday, and for 2 days of meetings and conferences, and I got stuck up there. And that was a real reminder that we're in a very raw and natural place, that we can get isolated like that.
No, I think that's true. Thinking of isolation, one thing that's helped us a lot is the Internet. I mean, for shopping and life.
The Internets.
Yes, Internets. When you were a kid, most of the parents back then, they got their kids clothes from Sears. Yeah, you go to start school in the fall and see how many kids got the same coat you did.
Oh, yeah. I love getting the Sears catalog, that big, thick catalog, and then I'd go through there and circle everything and get, maybe 1/8 of what I'd circle. Of course, that was just gluttony on my part. As you look back, do you see... what's the biggest highlight, or you traveled to Japan, you were part of Teshio, I believe, the Sister City program and stuff. What were some of the biggest highlights of being mayor of this fine city?
Gosh, I would say probably the most difficult part, I'll give you that first, and that was the oil spill.
And 89.
Yeah, and that wasn't because so much we weren't impacted that much directly here, but it did impact our citizens as far as the environmentalists were extremely concerned, the fishermen were impacted, and it led to a lot of conflict.
There was a lot of conflict and fear, wasn't there?
Yes, and it was. My assessment of it, it basically was bigger than anybody could really manage or handle, and yet everybody wanted to try.
Right. Yeah, I was working down at the fuel dock for Jake Ellison then in '89, and saw the boats coming through, and it was a life-changing experience for me in that I recognized what impact that we can have on our own coastline and fishery and every aspect of life. John, you touched on the fact that current pioneers face challenges as you did and pioneers ahead of you. What advice would you give young people either just getting here to Alaska and coming of age or starting to look to the future, and maybe politics will be part of it? What advice do you have?
Just, this is a land of opportunity. It was when I came. I mean, even starting with the stupid jobs that I did, as long as you're willing to stick your neck out a little bit, reach out a little bit, this is still a land of opportunity. I mean, compared to, you go, my vision of living stateside, you're in a little category, a little box. You work at a fast food place, or you work at a department store, or you work in an office, where here you can be anything you want to be if you want it bad enough. And that opportunity is still there, and that's what still makes this the last frontier.
Well said, well said. If you were writing your biography, how many chapters would you dedicate to Alaska?
Next Good Friday, this coming Good Friday, 2012, I will have lived one half my life in Alaska. So I'd say I'd have to put more than half of it up here, since I can't remember the first 2 or 3 years I was alive, actually.
Yeah, I remember those years. John Calhoun was my guest. Thank you, John. I appreciate everything that you've done for our community. I was in high school when you were a mayor, and I remember hearing your name around the dinner table and on the radio, and good stuff. I mean, you starred in a McDonald's commercial, which I threatened to play today, but I'm not going to. We just ran out of time, but we'll play that another time. Make sure you pick up a few Benjamins on that program. But I think you've done a lot for Alaska, and I think you've done a lot for Homer. And one thing I'd like to touch on is the fact that you and our friend John D. Kosh, were instrumental in bringing us a grocery store, a large grocery store in Cars. I think that what you guys did politically and what you did for the community shouldn't be forgotten, and I sincerely appreciate everything you've done.
Chris, it's an honor being called a pioneer. I never thought of myself that way, and I doubt that the people I look at as pioneers never thought of it either. They were just living their lives and doing what they enjoyed.
I want to thank Rich and Tom. They both knew that 400,000 people resided here in Alaska in 1978 when John P. Calhoun arrived. They're going to Blackwater Bend. And if you've got any questions or know of anybody that you think is a modern pioneer and we should talk to, send me an email. Want you story@xyz.net. Story@xyz.net. We'd like to talk to them. We'd like to talk to you. You can go back and listen to this program in its entirety, uninterrupted, at AdventureAlaskaRadio.com. I want to thank Dave Webb for engineering the program. Thank you, Dave.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for listening. I want to thank Tiffany for taking all the calls, and have a great day. Make Alaska your own, and as John said, you can be anything you want to be right here on Alaska Matters.
The Peninsula's home for unforgettable favorites. Great listening, 620 AM, KGTL.